Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. Listen up. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game offs on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning.
You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst and a full-time content creator for milehighhuddle.com, the one and only Erick Trickel. Man, Erick, so after this last week, obviously, you know, the Broncos dominating victory over the Detroit Lions, honoring Demaryius Thomas, a lot of really cool numerical statistics and facts and stuff like that came out of that. Things are looking up. The Broncos sitting at 7-6 right now, and quite honestly are about to go into the biggest December football game this team has played since 2015. Like, quite honestly, there's playoff ramifications here. They're playing against a team that also has playoff ramifications in the Cincinnati Bengals. Man, how are you feeling this week?
I'm feeling good. I mean, it was a kind of step back a little bit this week. I mean, last night I went and saw the new Spider-Man movie.
Nice. And
then I spent most of my day watching the second season of The Witcher. So kind of took a little bit of step back after spending some time watching the Bengals and focusing in on it. And like, it's just nice to kind of, you know, refresh my mind, take that little break and everything like that. And as these next few weeks come and go, I mean, there's a lot on the line. I mean, the Broncos, as I've been saying for a while now, we have meaningful games in December for the first time since 2016. And this is the biggest game that Denver has had in December since, as you said, 2015. I mean, in 2016, Denver sat 8-4 entering in the final stretch, and they finished 9-7. And so, like, it's nice that we have this chance, but this inconsistencies of this team can be bothersome and worrisome. So it just, as we get into the stretch, again, it was just nice to take a step back and just kind of, you know, just take a little breather, refresh and everything. But I'm excited. It's always nice to see your team having a chance. Even if they make it, I don't think they'll go far. But once you get in the playoffs, you give yourself a chance at least.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And quite honestly, the Bengals are in the exact same situation. They're coming in. They haven't played meaningful football games in December in several years now. I mean, going back to maybe even 2011, 2012, something like that. It's been a long time for the Bengals to be in this kind of a situation. So quite honestly, and going back full circle to Spider-Man here, these teams are like the Spider-Man meme. They're standing across from each other, both in Spider-Man costumes, pointing at like, you. They're the same team, guys. They have a lot of quality talent, really good running games. They rely heavily on their defense. One team just happens to have an explosive offense on the other side of the football field. We're going to get into that just a little bit later. But guys, before we get into everything, the full content of our show, which it says things about the playoffs here, but I'm changing the topic now to 15 reasons why Erick Trickel wants the Broncos to re-sign Melvin Gordon to a $5.2 million contract. I'm just playing. We might get into that here in just a minute as well.
Listen up, Broncos country. TickPick should be your first choice to buy football tickets because they save fans money by never charging any service fees ever. TickPick is the exclusive ticketing partner for the Huddle Up podcast and the Blue Wire Network.
Denver Broncos football is finally back, and there's no need to exhaust yourself searching all over the internet to find Broncos tickets anymore, because TickPick, that's TickPick, is the original no-fee ticket site and the only one you'll ever need as your go-to for all NFL tickets. TickPick got rid of all those awful service fees that the other ticket sites charge, which lets them guarantee the best prices on all of their NFL tickets. Don't believe it? If you can find better prices for the same seats on another ticket site, TickPick will give you 110% of the difference in the purchase price.
That's right, guys. When we were searching for tickets for the MHH meet and greet for Week 3 at home, Broncos versus Jets, TickPick had us locked down. So visit tickpick.com/huddle today and use the promo code HUDDLE to save $10 on your first order of Broncos tickets.
Yeah. Again, guys, mybookie.ag, use the promo code MHH, double that deposit as soon as you get there. And feel free to, go gamble on some sports. I've been doing it all season, not on my bookie, but I'm going to get to those guys here soon. Anyways, guys, today our topic is obviously the Broncos are in a playoff stretch, and they're pushing for the playoffs for the first time since 2015 when they won Super Bowl 50. So they're in kind of rare air here. We just haven't been able to do something like this for a while. So we decided we're going to go and this was actually Erick's idea, to go out and use a playoff simulator. And we're going to run through all 4 of the next weeks for you guys, specifically for teams that the Broncos need to look at that matter in the playoff picture. And we're going to start it off. Erick, you want to bring that up really fast here? Obviously, this week, the Broncos, plain and simple, they just need to keep winning football games. They have to start this week by beating the Bengals. But to start everything off, the big game that they needed to have this week, specifically for the division, and also to get a team that was hot on their heels or actually a little bit ahead of them in the playoff chase, is the Chiefs versus the Chargers, and the Chiefs handled their business. Now, right after that, you have this Patriots and Colts game, and this is an incredible matchup. The Patriots are currently sitting at where are they at? 8-4, I believe, right now. The Colts sitting at 7-6. So this game has a lot of playoff implications. Now, Erick, what do you think about New England versus Indianapolis?
Well, I think one of the best things about it is that we get the game tomorrow. So we get to go into Sunday having a better idea of where the Broncos stand. I mean, there's a couple other games, and we'll get to those here in a few minutes that matter this week as well. But this is a game that the Colts, they're playing good football, and they're playing pretty good complementary football. But the Patriots, I mean, they just look hard to beat at the moment. Mac Jones is playing solid football. I mean, their last game, obviously, in that bad weather, winning with only throwing 3 passes. I mean, they're able to run the ball. Their defense is consistently strong. Like, I have a hard time seeing the Patriots lose this one, which is the best news for the Broncos if they want to go and make a push for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Indianapolis, they're kind of streaky as well. They're hit and miss. You never know exactly what team you're going to get, hence the reason they're 7-6 right now. But they're leaning heavily on Jonathan Taylor, who is an absolutely amazing running back. He leads the league in rushing right now. Had a crazy game a couple weeks ago where he scored 4 or 5 touchdowns, something like that. Their defense is playing pretty decent football, but it really relies on the arm of Carson Wentz, and he just can't stay consistent this year. Again, I think that New England's probably going to walk away with this win, which definitely helps the Broncos in their playoff push. We've already picked, you guys can see on the screen here, we've already picked some of these games. These games don't matter. We're not necessarily going to talk about, the New York Jets and the Dolphins, Houston and Jacksonville. Those teams are pretty much going to be out of the playoff picture at this point. And the teams are playing have no scope on the Broncos. So the next game that could potentially have some playoff implications would be Tennessee versus Pittsburgh, but not really. I mean, if Pittsburgh wins, that hurts the Broncos a little bit because it clusters up the AFC playoff picture a little bit there. But I mean, Tennessee probably is going to win that game, and it's not necessarily going to matter in the most part. And Claude jumping in here. Thanks, Claude. We appreciate you for that. For some stars up there on Facebook saying go Broncos, and we appreciate you, man. Tennessee versus Pittsburgh, Erick. This was one that you and I kind of talked about. There's not a whole lot of implications here, but is there something more to this game?
I mean, if Pittsburgh wins, it keeps them in the hunt for the wild card spot. I mean, obviously everything it revolves around Denver winning. They have to, in my opinion, they have to win at least 3 games, get themselves to 10 wins, and that puts them in a good position to make the playoffs. If they can win all 4, then I think they do make the playoffs. So winning 3 is what we're looking at. So they have to win this week. And that's the biggest thing here. If they win this week, they'll go up to 8 wins, and Pittsburgh with a win, they'll go up to 7. What is it? 7-6-1, 7-5-1,
7-6-1. Yep.
7-6-1. No, 7-7-1 is what it would be.
Okay.
And so they would still be right there in the playoff hunt, and it makes things a little bit more difficult if the Broncos can't manage to get those 3 wins. If they only manage to go like 2-2, that could be a move that keeps them out of the potentially out of the playoffs, depending on what Pittsburgh does. But again, it all comes back to Denver. If they can go to get themselves to 8-6, they're in a good position. They control their own fate. And anyways, I don't think that Tennessee will lose this one. Even going on the road to Pittsburgh, it's one that I think they will win. And as I said, going to go ahead and mark off Denver having to win, because if Denver wants to make the playoffs, they've got to win these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last cliff note on the Tennessee and Pittsburgh game. If Tennessee does win this game, that means that Pittsburgh is unable to win 10 games. And in this cluttered AFC playoff picture, 10 wins is probably the threshold. So you're going to have to get there. In essence, if Pittsburgh loses this week, they could be completely eliminated from playoff contention. I mean, they're not 100%. They still have a shot to get there, but they would need a lot of help. They need Cleveland to lose, Cincinnati to lose, Denver to lose multiple times. They've got a long ways to go here. This next one, though, the Las Vegas versus Cleveland game, and there's some big implications on this one, especially with the news that happened earlier today. And Claude jumping back in here really fast with another generous donation here. A great insight, fellas. Thanks for breaking these scenarios down for you. Hey, no problem, man. And we appreciate you guys for joining us because this is a fun conversation. There's a lot of different ways that this can go, and we just thank you all for joining us tonight on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Now, back at it here. Las Vegas and Cleveland. Cleveland is currently having an outbreak of COVID right now, and they have had, I think it's like 20 total players and 11 starters tested positive over the past couple of days, including Jadeveon Clowney, who was the 11th starter today that just tested positive. So that game, which was supposed to be played tomorrow, actually got moved to Monday, which then, as Mark Davis put out on his Twitter account, saying that it was a competitive disadvantage for the Raiders because now they're going to be moving into a short week after the Monday game. This game is huge, absolutely huge, because Vegas can play some spoilers here. They're kind of on the outside looking in the playoff hunt, and Cleveland is definitely right there in the thick of things. So the Broncos really need Vegas to win this game somehow.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Raiders. They currently sit at 6-7. So getting to 7-7 isn't a bad thing. It's kind of like the whole situation with the Steelers. If the Broncos win, they can be a game up on the Raiders. And if the Broncos lose and the Raiders win, then it just muddies up the whole wild card playoff race and really decreases the chances of the Broncos making it. So as dirty as it is to say, and how dirty it makes me feel, gotta root for Las Vegas this week.
Yep.
I mean, having them win on the road with everything, I think they can pull it out with everything that's going on, the whole disadvantage of it. But this is a team that they started off hot, and they're doing their typical Raider back end fall that they've done over the last few years. And the Browns, they're still pushing for it. As you said, this is a week that we really need the Raiders to be spoilers. Denver still has a game over them, even though they lost the one earlier. That can help with some tiebreakers there as well. So they need the Raiders to win this one, and that it's as simple as that. Going on to a short week, that will help the Broncos next week against the Raiders, but it all starts with this week. Denver has to have the Raiders to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis jumping in here with some stars. Thanks, Travis, for joining us tonight. Good evening, Lance and Eric in Broncos country. This Broncos team has been up and down all season. We'll need lots of help from other teams. For Denver themselves, it's all going to be on the shoulders of the defense and Williams and Gordon because the passing game has disappeared. Yeah, I mean, obviously the recipe for success for this Broncos team has been, quite honestly, running the football effectively. And over the last 3 weeks, they've done that. Specifically against the Detroit Lions, and just kind of letting Teddy do his thing, manage the game, not make very many mistakes, if any mistakes, lean on Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon down the stretch and let that defense go and do their things. There's actually a really interesting piece up at milehighhuddle.com. I'm going to plug this for Thomas Hall. He dropped 3 crucial things that the Broncos need to have clicking for this team to, make a playoff run down the stretch here. 2 of them were the running game and also getting the defense to start getting some more takeaways. They have 12 interceptions, not very many fumbles this season. I think it's 16 total takeaways. If off the top of my head, I can't remember that exact number. But the defense and the running game are for sure the keys for this team to make that playoff stretch.
I mean, there's no denying that the passing game hasn't been great or consistent. But I don't think that saying it's disappeared is exactly fair, because when you're able to run the ball as effectively as the Broncos have been the last few weeks, you don't need a strong passing game. You just need an efficient one that's not going to turn the ball over. The issue with the Broncos passing game, and we saw it against the Kansas City Chiefs, is when they get behind, they're not ones that can come up and get you. It's not a strong enough passing game to come back and get the lead back or put themselves in a position to stay in the game. They start to fall back. That's what the issue is with the passing game. It's not that it's disappeared. It's just that hasn't been needed. It wasn't really needed against the Chargers. They ran the ball so effectively. Wasn't really needed against the Lions, even though that was one of their better passing games and really efficient passing games so far this season, because they ran the ball so well. They got quite a few short yarded situations, and they were able to turn it over into points. They had 9 drives. They scored on 6 of them. So, I mean, or 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them. So it's just that they need the passing game to be there when they need it.
Yep.
And it's been consistently not the case.
Right. And what's the easiest way to make sure that you don't need your passing game? Have an effective running game, play good defense, don't let the opponent score, and control the clock. So the Broncos have a winning recipe, and eventually, Teddy's going to hit something. He's going to throw something deep. They finally got Noah Fant involved in the vertical passing game this last week. A big 32-yard catch down the right sideline, so that's pushing the ball down the field a little bit. But still, that was the only play that the ball traveled more than 21 yards in the air. I mean, they've got to have some more explosiveness to the offense in general, but they don't absolutely need to have that if the recipe that they have for success is actually working out and creating a good dinner. Because quite honestly, if they're not cooking well, then it's going to be tough sledding. Last little cliff note here for the Cleveland game that I want to say. Obviously, the Broncos lost to the Raiders earlier this season. They can get one back on the Raiders next week, but this is a huge game again and the Broncos desperately need the Raiders to win this game because they already lost to Cleveland once this season. So that's a huge tiebreaker game there. And if the Raiders lose and Cleveland manages to win, that just puts it makes the sledding a little bit tougher for the Broncos. Now, a surprising game that actually matters desperately for this Broncos team is the Carolina at Buffalo game. And Buffalo, the reason why I say it's a surprising game is because Buffalo last season was in the AFC Championship game. This year, they can't seem to get out of their own way. Their running game is ineffective. They lost an embarrassing game to the Jacksonville Jaguars a few weeks ago. They're sitting currently, I believe they're at 7-6 as well, one of the logjam teams that's right in the thick of things in the playoffs. Carolina has to win this football game, man, and they have the ability to do so.
Carolina has been playing so poorly. They can't figure out what's going on at quarterback. Denver, if Carolina manages to win this and New England beats the Colts and the Raiders beat the Browns, the Broncos win, they're the 5th seed.
Yep.
After this week. So you want the Panthers to win. It's just, even though Carolina can't get out of their own way, or the Buffalo Bills can't get out of their own way, Carolina is bad and not having any idea what they're doing at quarterback. And there's issues with their coaching staff. I mean, Joe Brady wasn't doing a great job, but he ended up kind of being scapegoated a little bit. So there's a lot of issues there, and I just don't think that they'll be able to pull it away. And it makes things difficult, but the Broncos, in a way, kind of control their own fate. And Buffalo winning isn't a killer for the Broncos' playoff hopes. It just means that they can't get to that 5th seed like they could if Carolina wins.
Yeah. Carolina, as far as their pass rush is concerned, they could probably, make a little bit of action in that game. I don't necessarily think they're going to pull it off. Josh Allen's just too good. But it'd be great if Carolina could win it. Now, the other game for this week specifically, Green Bay at Baltimore. Baltimore obviously missing Lamar Jackson. They might be on a tailspin. It doesn't sound. I'm not sure if Lamar has been announced as out, but I know that his availability for the game was in doubt, quote unquote. So we could see Tyler Huntley here. This is another big one because as far as the AFC West is concerned, obviously you have the Chargers and the Broncos there, but all 4 of the teams in the AFC North, save maybe the Steelers, are in the thick of things here. The Ravens currently, I believe, are holding the division lead right now, but I mean, it's very, very thin. If they lose here and the Bengals manage to beat the Broncos on Sunday, I think the Bengals actually go back into first place in the AFC North. Like, this is a big game, and it has big playoff ramifications for the Broncos.
Yeah, before I get to that, I wanted to grab Joe Mannix's comment real quick, because we don't control our own fate. Not exactly. They don't fully control it, but I mean, there's a difference. And what I was meaning to say was that in a way they do, because they have to go in and they have to win these games. If they want any chance, they have to win these games. If they go in and they drop multiples, I mean, they're playing 3 teams that are in the playoffs at the moment with the Bengals, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. I mean, that's in a way how they control their own fate. Yes, they still need other help, but it all comes down to is that they got to play their games, they got to win their games and go from there.
Yeah. Something to add to that, I actually found another simulator. It's not the one that we're using right now. Is the New York Times playoff predictor simulator. And I clicked on if the Broncos manage to win all 4 of their games going throughout the rest of the season, they have like a 99% chance of actually making the playoffs. So yes, they do control their own destiny by winning all of these games. If they get 3 wins, it's like 74% or 71% or something like that they make the playoffs. Just get in. Now, if they win all 4 of those games, I think the probability of them getting the 5 seed is like 74% or something like that. Like they do. If they just go out and win these games and do what they need to do, take care of 2 bad teams in a row. Well, not really bad teams, but 1 middling team and 1 bad team, and the Bengals and the Raiders. They've already smashed the Chargers one time, so it's definitely fair to say that they could do that again. Take care of business against the Chargers, go into the Chiefs game, which they might be resting all their starters, because by that point, if the Broncos beat the Raiders and the Chargers again, the Chiefs will very well likely be number 1 in the AFC West, and they could rest all of their starters. The Broncos could go steal a game from the Chiefs there, win all 4, and be the 5 seed in the AFC. It's possible.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for joining us. Says good
Yes.
evening, Lance and Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos, and definitely go Broncos. And Orange Crush 2.0 saying we technically do control our own fate if we win out, which isn't likely because we beat the Bengals and Chargers on the way to winning out, and we just need the Colts and Browns to lose. Yeah, that's kind of what I was meaning by the fact that in a way they control their own fate. They still need help, but they can do it. And as for this Green Bay Packers Baltimore Ravens game, the reason why this game can matter is if Green Bay wins, then you have Baltimore there with the Browns, and they're both going to be fighting for the division. So in a way, you kind of want Baltimore to win, to root for Baltimore to win this one, to help get a lead on that division and clear up the wild card race. But again, with Lamar Jackson, with how he's playing, and with how the Packers have been playing, I just don't think that'll be the case. And I think the Packers pull this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Me as well. All right, so let's move on to the next week really fast. I want to grab this, Eric, while you get that loaded up. Venom Seeker jumping in here saying, I'm worried. Cincinnati has a top 5 run defense, and if they take away the run from us, then our chances to win go down. We barely use any of our pass weapons at this point. And now I want to take a second here and kind of address this. The Cincinnati run defense has been phenomenal, and it's a big part of their front 5, front 7. Quite honestly, DJ Reader is a guy that Broncos fans should be familiar with. They were rumored to be in chases with him a couple of years ago when he was an unrestricted free agent. They also have Larry Ogunjobi, who is a guy that I like coming out of Baylor a few years ago. He's playing really good football. Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard are doing a good job at the line of scrimmage, controlling the point of attack and stuff like that. But it's the linebackers, and hopefully they're going to be able to go. It doesn't sound like Logan Wilson will be able to go, and maybe not even Jermaine Pratt. And those are the two players that stir the drink for that defense. Like, quite honestly, they fly all over the field, great athletes. So the Broncos could catch a break with the Bengals not having their 2 guys in the middle of their defense, and Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. Denver might be able to kind of get something established on the ground this week.
Well, my question is, how are they top 5? Like, what statistic are you looking at for it?
I think it's rush yards per game allowed.
Well, I mean, yards per game is a terrible set to look at. Their EPA and their success rate against them, both of them, they're in the bottom 10, bottom 11 for those. And then for DVOA, I think they're ranked like 14th or 15th, which is middle of the pack. This is a run defense that they get. They're a little bit better than those stats look like. And here's the issue with the yards per game is that they get put in bad positions with some turnovers that allows them to that will help keep the rushing yards a little bit down a little bit. And then also they've gotten to against some teams that are more of a rushing offense, and they've been able to get some pretty decent leads thanks to some broken coverages. I mean, if you look at the Baltimore Ravens game, that kind of hit that at that as well. So EPA, DVOA, and their success rates, I mean, they're middle of the pack. I'm not as fearful of this Bengals rushing defense as others are. I mean, it's a solid unit, don't get me wrong, and they can definitely go and game plan to stop the duo that is Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I just don't think it'll come easily for them, and I think if they start to have early success against it, I think Denver will very quickly go away from the run because we've seen that from Pat Shurmur, and that would be a mistake on his end.
Yes, it would. Travis jumping in here. Let's say that Denver does make the playoffs, and we'll get back to this conversation in a second. Do you feel comfortable with Vic Fangio and company coming back, or do you think Peyton will want to make a tweak here or there? quite honestly, I'm comfortable with Vic Fangio coming back. I am. As so long as he's the head coach and so long as the special teams coordinator and the offensive coordinator get changed. I'm also, this sucks to say, and I hate to have to say it, I'm also kind of comfortable with Teddy Bridgewater coming back on a 1-year deal. If that means that the Broncos are going to go and draft a quarterback to groom behind him for that 1 year. Do I think that happens? Probably not. I think the Broncos are going to be heavily involved. If Vic Fangio's here, I think that it's going to probably be the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, and hopefully he can bring a Nathaniel Hackett or maybe a Mike McDaniel from San Francisco, promote him to the full-time play caller, assistant head coach, to get that to be able to happen. But yes, I am comfortable with Fangio coming back.
I'd be comfortable with it. I mean, he's shown multiple times that he has issues that will keep him from really being a great one. And as for what Lance said about Teddy, I'm not okay with him coming back. Like, he's been the best quarterback that we've had in a while, and I know a lot of you people in chat are going to get angry at me for saying that. And
It's
I mean,
true.
There's so many statistics that you can show it and look at. Tape even shows it as well. But getting off track here, I'm just not okay with it because you would have to pay him. You'd have to pay him a decent amount. And quite frankly, he's not worth that. Like,
No,
you don't pay middle to bottom tier quarterbacks. Like, don't.
Yeah, I don't. The report that came out with him wanting $21 to $25 million the other day, I'm not in that camp. Like, quite honestly, he's probably going to get it from some team that's quarterback desperate. I don't want to pay that, but if you can get him at 15, 16, maybe, then yeah, I would at least think about that. Antonio Aragon jumping in here with the $5 super chat. What's up, guys? I'll be at the game on Sunday going crazy. Hopefully we can secure the win and start a win streak. And hey, man, cheer loud, cheer proud. Make sure you get some Mile High Magic going. The Broncos are going to need it. I mean, this Bengals team, they're interesting. I'm not going to say they're scary. They do have a scary, explosive offense, but they are very interesting to watch. My stepson is actually a Bengals fan, so I'm going to have to tease him the entire time that this game is going. It's going to be really rough in the Sanderson household if the Bengals lose because he does not do losing very well. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
If they win, tell him I said he's sleeping outside. Anyways, getting into the Week 16 situations here, and this is where the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals, that's where it continues to come in, because even if the Bengals win this week, that'll get them to 8-7. A Bengals loss gets them to 7-7, and the Browns loss will get them to 7-7. So that division is still a mess, for a appropriate way to put that. It's still a mess and everything, and so it still makes a mess for the playoff race. And here, since we kind of want the Ravens to go out and win the division, we want them to go out and beat the Bengals to help the Broncos' chances of getting a wild card. Because quite frankly, I don't see the Broncos winning the division with how the Chiefs are playing. That just seems like such a long shot. So focus on the wild card spot here. So this is one where the Ravens need to go out and win and come away with it. And it's the same thing with Buffalo and New England. Buffalo at 8-6, New England at 12-4. You want New England to go out there and win it, keep hold of the division, and keep Buffalo kind of struggling for a wild card spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you. And shout out to Scott running the ones and twos behind the scenes, jumping in here and saying that Lamar Jackson was officially listed as questionable. So thank you for that for this week. And that low ankle sprain, with a player like him, the explosiveness that he uses, the quick cuts and stuff like that, that's going to hamper him. If he does come out and play this week, which I think would probably be a mistake, let him, kind of rest for a little bit. They got a tough matchup against the Packers. With the way Green Bay is playing, especially offensively, it's going to be a tough one there. If you can afford to take a loss, that would be one that you could have. So make sure you get Lamar Jackson healthy and let him take care of the Cincinnati Bengals here. Now, the next game we have to talk about here is one that is probably not going to turn out the way that Broncos fans need it to turn out, and that is the Chargers versus the Houston Texans. Unfortunately, Houston is one of the worst teams in the NFL. Obviously, you can see over to the left-hand side of the screen there. They're sitting at 2-14, last place in the AFC South right now.
2-13, but that 2-14 is with the loss this week.
Right, sorry. So 2-14 going into Week 16. But Davis Mills has been really bad. The defense has not been playing great. They kind of play scrappy. They're fired up. They show out, but they're just there's such a lack of talent on that team. And the Chargers have a top probably 6'5" quarterback in the NFL in Justin Herbert, who is playing, quite honestly, MVP level football. I mean, he's got over 30 touchdowns already this season, and that offense is definitely scary. So unfortunately, I don't think that it's going to happen this way, but the Broncos definitely need Houston to win that game if they can somehow manage to pull the upset.
Yeah, and then going to the two games that are AFC, NFC crossovers, we've got Green Bay and Cleveland and Arizona and Indianapolis. And this is the one where both teams of the AFC, they're in that playoff hunt, so you want both teams on the NFC to win to help clear out that wild card race. And then, of course, going to Denver and Las Vegas. Short week. I think Denver can walk away with this one, especially after getting embarrassed in their last game about it. I think there'll be more drive from them to go out and win this one. But Denver, as we said, this isn't exactly how we think the season will go. It's just kind of showing what needs to happen to help the Broncos get to the playoffs. And this puts them in a good position, gets them at 9-6, puts them in the 5th spot for the wild card race for the first wild card spot after week 16 with 2 more weeks to go, which is a pretty good position. The Raiders will fall down to 7-8, so they would be 2 games up on them. The Buffalo Bills at 8-7 and Chargers at 9-6 are also right there taking up wild card spots. And then the Bengals and the Browns would be the other 2 that are 7-8, and they'll be also pushing for the wild card spots as well.
Yep. Another quick cliff note on the Raiders game, and obviously the last time the Broncos got drummed, the final score was not nearly indicative of what that game actually looked like. But quite honestly, that's the best game that the Raiders have played since John Gruden got fired, because he got fired 2 days before the game. Like they had a bump there. They went out there for their new coach and Rich Bisaccia, and they played a great game. Denver came out flat, probably expecting a flat matchup from the Raiders, considering what they had just gone through. So after the John Gruden thing happened, then they have the Henry Ruggs incident and then Damon Arnett incident. Like, this team's in a death spiral, and it's only getting faster by the second. So the Broncos taking care of the Raiders next week is probably about as mortal of a lock as you can get. And hopefully they manage to piss pound the Raiders, because quadruple F the Raiders. All right. Week 17. Start us off with an amazing matchup. We've got KC and Cincinnati, and obviously with Kansas City, you at this point you almost want them to just win out and win the division, because that makes the path for the Broncos to get to the playoffs the easiest. And it starts right here.
Just to add in real quick, you also want Kansas City to win the next 3 weeks, because that puts them in a good position to where they'll possibly want to rest their starters for that Week 18 matchup. Exactly.
Yes, you're 100% right. And I alluded to that just a little bit ago. But the Cincinnati Bengals, so coming into this week, would be sitting at 7-8. Probably on the outside looking in. I believe they're sitting at the 11th seed in the playoffs. So they're going to be on the outside looking in. Obviously, Kansas City winning the division, winning this game against the Bengals, that helps bolster the Broncos' playoff chances. They're sitting at 9-6. Kansas City would move to 12-4 with this victory.
And then another week of needing the Raiders to win, because the Indianapolis Colts, as you can see on the side of the screen, they set at 7-8, and one would put them at 8-8, and that would help muddy up the playoff spot for the wild card spot for the wild card race with the Broncos. So as much as it sucks, you kind of want to root for the Raiders here, especially if the Broncos win the week before. Now, if the Raiders beat the Broncos going into this week, then you want the Colts to win.
Yep.
So this is one that it depends on what happens in the Week 16 matchup, and that will vary with what you want to happen for the Broncos. But with how things stand now, you'd want the Raiders to win this one.
You would want the Raiders to win. I think that the Colts will end up winning that football game, because, like I said, the Raiders are just in a death spiral right now. They're not a good football team. But coming into this game, you could see Marcus Mariota starting at quarterback, just to kind of see what they have in him, maybe get an offensive spark. They might potentially be even able to move on from Derek Carr after this season. So keep your eyes on that one, by the way. Andrew Baker jumping in here. What up, DVDD? Would you rather keep Teddy Bridgewater and draft a quarterback, or go for Rodgers and Wilson? MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life, strong arm, glasses, the whole 9 yards. This is an easy answer for me. It would be in this particular order. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and then go to the draft. And if you could figure out a way to swindle Derek Carr from the Raiders this season, I'd be really interested in that as well. Eric?
There's a long list of quarterbacks I'd go before I'm looking at a quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, I am also there with you too. But
a little bit of time watching them again this week, see what they've done over the rest of the season, and my grades for them all actually dropped a little bit.
Wow, okay. I've watched enough Matt Corral to know that I'm not necessarily sold on him, and everyone says that he's the best quarterback in this draft. I've watched enough Kenny Pickett to say, I mean, if I was picking in the 25 to 30 range, then sure, I'd take a flyer on him as a 5th round option kind of a guy just to, ensure you get that. Carson Strong. Hey, so I did see a report there, Eric. I'm not sure if you saw this. Carson Strong saw an independent NFL doctor. They did an MRI on his knee. He's fully cleared and the doctor said that there should not be any future ramifications. I don't know the truth to that, but I did see that earlier yesterday.
The person that came from is Jim Nagy. He's the guy in charge of the Senior Bowl and everything like that.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I would take that report with a grain of salt.
That's fair.
Anyways, on that thing, they each have their issues. I mean, and the fact with Carson Strong is that he still has had 3 knee surgeries in it. Michael Ronquillo came in with some stars real quick. Thank you, Michael, for your continued support for this show and every other one. And then with Kenny Pickett, this was amazing to me. Like, Chad's going to get mad at me again because I'm going to be talking about hand size here. But Kenny Pickett's reported to be 8.25-inch hands. That is ridiculously small. Just for the record, there's only been 2 quarterbacks that have in 670 quarterbacks over the last 37 years. Only 2 quarterbacks have had smaller hands than that. Only 1 quarterback has had the same size hands as him, and that was a guy who went undrafted, Kevin Davidson, out of 2020. And now we're talking about Kenny Pickett as a top 10 pick. There's a reason why hand size has an impact on it. It deals with ball control in bad weather. We know that Kenny Pickett wears 2 gloves. I mean, the joke is that he's Kenny 2 gloves because there's some similarities there in his style to Teddy Bridgewater.
There is. But
the issue is that we've seen him play in bad weather, and the gloves didn't really help him all that much. So
Scott jumping in here saying my 12-year-old has 9.5-inch hands, and I will spoil it out. I was curious, legitimately curious about how big my hands were a couple weeks ago. I measured my hands out 8 3/8 of an inch. Like, I have tiny hands. Okay, I really do. I could not play quarterback in the NFL. First off, I have a decent arm, but not great, and my hands were too small to hold the football. And a side note on to Kenny Pickett as well. He also has 27 career fumbles while at Pittsburgh. 27 fumbles. Like, that's a ridiculous amount of times putting the ball on the ground. That's a flaw, and that's something that teams are going to have to vet. And with his small hand size, it's probably going to check out that's the big issue, and it's going to drop his draft stock. I also don't like his arm strength. I don't think he has the strongest arm strength in the world. He's a decent enough athlete. You might be able to get him to work for a couple of seasons, but spot starter maybe.
And nothing will get a guy to grab a measuring tape fast when they're talking about size. Clayton told Zach and Chad that yesterday he became a subscriber. Hey, thank you for subscribing on. And that's awesome. It gives you access to plenty of other content that we put out on Facebook. So thank you for that. I mean, it's another way to support the shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that, Clayton. Dustin jumping in here. We would need a quarterback guru to develop anyone in this draft, and we don't have that. Well, that's just the thing here. Like I said earlier, I think that the Broncos are going to eventually move on from Pat Shurmur this offseason. I think it's going to be, if not right at the end of the season, right after the season. Just this offense hasn't been good enough, guys, and it lies at his feet. He gets indignant with the press. It just doesn't seem to change anything. Like, Pat Shurmur's not going to be around. They're going to get a new offensive system and a guy that probably has some history with developing quarterbacks. Hint Darrell Bevel, hint Mike McDaniel, and hint Nathaniel Hackett. Those are probably the 3 guys they're going to be looking at. I think that I agree with you, but that's going to change. That's going to change. The Broncos are going to do something to fix that.
Quarterback gurus are a thing of fiction. Michael Ronquillo came in with some more stars saying, great show tonight, Lance and Eric, and the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos. Thank you, Michael,
Thanks, Mike,
again for your continued support. And getting back to the playoff race, I mean, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, this is another one where you actually kind of want the Steelers to win this one to beat the Browns because, again, that muddied up AFC playoff race for the wild card spot. You want them to win. And, of course, this is one where Denver, they got to hit at least those 3 wins. And unsure of what the Chiefs will do week 18, winning the next 3 is key, so they need to win this one to help their spot. And then anything to help clear up the AFC playoff race, nothing can help that more than an NFC team beating an AFC team. So it would be nice to see Atlanta beat Buffalo, but I'm not sure that actually happens. I'm still going to click on Atlanta here because I want to basically do it for the playoff standings after the season if things were to fall this way.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Travis Weber jumping in here again, man. Holy cow. Thanks, Travis. We appreciate you, big dog. If Wilson and Rodgers or Carr doesn't happen for Denver, would you guys be okay with maybe Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, or Cousins, or stick with Teddy? Of the 4 names listed there, Cousins is the most intriguing one. I'm not sure if he'd want to come to Denver. He has some ties there with George Payton, so maybe that would be something. And Teddy probably would be third on that list behind Tyrod Taylor. Honestly, I'm not a Marcus Mariota fan in any way, shape, or form.
How I think it is for the Broncos, this is just my opinion on it based on stuff I've heard, based on rumors, things like that, is Wilson's target 1, Rodgers is target 2, Cousins is target 3. Then you might see Derek Carr there if he becomes available, but I doubt Raiders would trade him in division. And then Ryan's in there, but that depends on what Atlanta is going to be doing with Matt Ryan.
Well, and Matt Ryan has like $40 million in dead cap space after the season. Like there's not a clear path for him to be traded anyways, because the Falcons would be on the hit for a massive hit to their salary cap. And I mean, I know they're rebuilding. They've got a long ways to go yet, but they need to hold on to Matt Ryan for at least another season before they can think about moving on from him.
And that was the big thing with the extension they gave him before the draft, was that it kind of locked him in place for a couple of years.
Yep.
And that was one reason why a lot of people started being more comfortable saying that they're not going to go for a quarterback. They're going to go try for a last ride with Matt Ryan and then go off from there. So I don't think Matt Ryan will be available. I just think if somehow, for some reason he was, then he's probably like that 5th or 6th guy on the Broncos list.
Yeah, Jordan jumping in. Hey, man. What's up, man? How we doing? Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. So we're sitting here at week 18. Eric, why don't you scroll down really fast and show where we're at as far as the Broncos record? I believe we're sitting at 10-6, which is a mark that everybody says if you're going to get into the playoffs in the AFC picture right now, you have to get to 10 wins. This is the one. And obviously we talked about it a little bit earlier with the Chiefs sitting at 12-4. They've already clinched the division. There's no way that they can lose that out. They are probably going to be sitting most of their starters, if not all of them, getting ready to go. And as you can see here, they're sitting as the number 3 seed in the AFC. So they don't have the first round bye. They're going to have to kind of get guys rested up as much as they can so that they can be prepared for wild card weekend to go. And I believe that they would be playing the Chargers. If the season were to end at that point, they would be playing the Chargers as the number 6 seed. Denver would get the number 4 seed, I believe is how that works. And they would be playing at the Baltimore Ravens. So that'd be a rematch from earlier this year. Tennessee would then get the number 7 seed there as well. So obviously to help the Broncos out even just a little bit more, maybe get them, they're sitting currently at the 5 seed. So maybe lock this into the 5 seed. You would need the Jets to beat Buffalo, but that's probably not going to happen. And as of right now, it looks like the Bills would be out of playoff. Well, no, if the Bills win, they jump to the number 7 seed. Okay. So yeah, the Bills winning that game would jump them into the playoffs. It would kick the who was the 7 seed? They're the Chargers.
The Raiders.
The Raiders. How are the Raiders in the 7 seed? The whole AFC West would be in the playoffs. That's wild. Unreal. Before we get back, Joe jumping in here with a very generous super chat. We appreciate you, man. All I'm asking for Christmas is the Broncos somehow make the playoffs and get a new coach and a new quarterback next year. I know those 3 things are somewhat conflicting, but I can hope. A great show tonight. Go Broncos. Eric, what do you think about that?
I mean, I can't really disagree. I would like for them to make the playoffs. My birthday is quite sad when the Broncos aren't in the playoffs. So, but it'd be nice to have them there. It'd be nice for them to have a game that weekend and something to root for my birthday and everything like that. And I know that's selfish, but and getting a new quarterback, I mean, I think that's in the docket no matter what.
Yeah. Hey, I got a Broncos win for my birthday this last Sunday, even though it was kind of somber with DT's passing and everything. But at least we got to see the Broncos dominate the Lions and get a good win for my birthday. So I can definitely appreciate that. The one thing that I will say is I think that Vic Fangio, if the Broncos make the playoffs, I think he's coming back next season. Hell, he might be coming back next season anyways. Which would
no.
Really?
If he doesn't make the playoffs, I highly doubt he's back.
Okay.
And if he makes the playoffs, I think it's more likely, but I wouldn't say it's guaranteed.
Right, and that's fair, especially given we've seen 3 years of this. One season does not erase the lasting memory of the last 2 seasons, and quite honestly, the last 4 seasons, even though that doesn't have anything to do with Vic Fangio. But new blood coming in, especially if they're going to go out and bring in a quarterback like a Russell Wilson, that would be the move that you would make. You could see the Broncos make the playoffs, still turn over the roster, bring in Dan Quinn, Darrell Bevell, and Russell Wilson, turn over the coaching staff, keep the roster intact, bring in Dan Quinn, Russell Wilson, Darrell Bevell, something like that, move forward into this next season, become legitimate playoff and Super Bowl contenders.
You kind of hit the nail on the head as to why I don't think it's guaranteed if Vic Fangio makes the playoffs that he's back, is because if you want one of those veteran quarterbacks, and Russell Wilson's kind of made it clear that he wants more control or more say in the coaching staff. Aaron Rodgers, that was part of his issue there. So coming in and bringing them and saying, hey, you're stuck with this head coach, you're not going to have any say, is probably not the best start.
Right.
I think that they might be able to sell them on Vic Fangio as a head coach if they give him a say in the offensive coordinator. Yeah. Unofficially, of course, because that would be tampering, and no one in the NFL tampers. But anyways, getting back to the playoff race here, as you mentioned with the Jets and the Buffalo, I mean, this one, it matters, but it matters if the Broncos lose. So you want the Jets to win this one. And then Cincinnati and the Bengals, you'd actually want the Bengals to win, since Denver has the head-to-head over them, and like the Cleveland Browns, if they beat them this week, of course. Yep. And then Jacksonville, you would want them to beat Indy, because this one, at this point, this one wouldn't matter. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So we can go ahead there. And then Pittsburgh, that one wouldn't matter either. So really, I mean, at this point, things would be cleared up. You want Denver to win, but if Denver loses, they go to 10-7. And if the Chargers beat the Raiders, that's where things get weird. Nope. If Denver can win the next 3 weeks and things fall this way, Denver would be the 5th seed still, which is one reason why we were talking about, I was wanting to do this, is because this is how, in a way, Denver controls their own fate. They still need help, yes, but as long as they can win 3 of the next 4 games, they have a really good shot of making the playoffs. And of course, it'd be nice to see the Raiders go out and beat them, just because, hey, it'd be fun to say that all 4 teams in the division had winning records. Mm-hmm. But again, it all depends.
Jordan jumping in here. I want to ask you a question here, Eric, on the other side of this really fast, because it actually is very intriguing to me. Jordan jumping in here saying, I like it when we have to rely on other teams. Shaking my head. LOL. Yeah, it's not necessarily fun to rely on other teams, but like Eric just said, the Broncos really do control their own destiny. Now, on the flip side of that, there is something. I mean, if they just keep winning football games, they're going to get into the playoffs, guys. We just kind of proved it to you there. I want you to leave this the way you have it here, Eric. You have the Week 18 game against the Chiefs. You have the Chiefs winning that football game. I want you to go back to the Chargers game. So it'd be the Week 17 game, I believe. If you could go back to the Week 17 game. And I want you to click on that. And let's see what that does to the playoff picture.
It would kick Denver out of the playoffs.
The Broncos have to win against the Chargers. Absolutely have to win against the Chargers. They have to win these next 3 games. And if they do manage to steal the game from the Chiefs, they jump back into it. Or at least I'd imagine that's how it would work out. But yeah, they have to win these next 3 games. If they have any hopes of playing in the playoffs this season, they have to win Cincinnati, they have to beat the Raiders, and they have to beat the Chargers. Plain and simple. That's just how it works.
And I'm going to pull it off the screen real quick so I can set up another scenario real quick. So go ahead and just talk to the chat for a minute.
All right, let me go through the chat really fast. Joe Mannix thinks that Justin Herbert is going to get revenge on the Broncos, and that very well could be. The one thing I will say is that the last 2 times that the Broncos have played Justin Herbert, they've pretty well contained him, especially this last time. The Chargers were looking for answers all over the place. It was close there for a minute. Obviously, the Drew Lock came in and it was just kind of weird there for a minute. Teddy Bridgewater ended up getting hurt. The Broncos came back. It took the lead again late in the second half. It was a really good football game by the Broncos there. And the defense has figured out ways to stop these elite quarterbacks. I mean, Pat Mahomes The Broncos have held to 22 points the last 2 times that they played him. Herbert as well. They have the overtime win last season with Drew Lock against Justin Herbert. So I mean, I could see them getting revenge on the Broncos this week, in that Week 17 game. But at the same time, I mean, the Broncos have a formula and it's working, at least for this point. And Jay Kozat, exactly. It's a very astute point. If the Broncos win all 4, it won't matter, and they are in. And quite honestly, if they win all 4, they would be the 5 seed. It's like a 99% chance if they win all 4, they would be the 5 seed in the AFC playoffs.
They would need help to get the 5 seed. If they win all 4, they're in the playoffs.
Yep.
No matter how other things, when the Colts can win out, it's because of who they play. The biggest thing is beating the Bengals and the Chargers. They have to win those 2 games to make the playoffs, but if they win all 4, they're in. I mean, you control your own fate that way.
Yep. And that's kind of the big premise there. And that's why people say a lot of the time that they control their own fate. They're not looking for a late season win and then 6 scenarios on the other side of that to help them squeak into the playoffs. And maybe, like the Buffalo Bills a couple of seasons ago, I think that was the first time they made the playoffs in 25 years. They squeaked in at 9-7 and needed 3 teams to lose after they won their Week 17 game. And they somehow managed to squeak in behind Tyrod Taylor. So, it's not that kind of a scenario here. The Broncos are in very good shape considering where they're sitting and considering the past 5 seasons. This is, again, it's the biggest football game that the Broncos have played in December in 5 seasons, guys. Like we're in the thick of things here.
I can actually show it to you. This is with the Bengals winning, going 3-1. This is with Buffalo winning out, Indianapolis winning out. Denver's at 10-7. With losing to Kansas City, you have them win. They're 11-6. They're the 7th seed. Like, win all 4 games, they're in the playoffs. They don't need help for that.
There you go. All righty, guys. I'm going to scroll through this one more time. Or Eric, do you want to get into this Bengals game really fast and do some Bengals breakdown, or do we want to kind of keep scrolling through the chat and find some?
There was one comment I saw earlier about an article I did talking about the Broncos pass rush. Which, did you know that the Broncos' second leading pass rusher in total pressures is Von Miller?
Yes, I did know that actually.
Behind Draymond Jones.
Yep.
Yeah. They need edge help, like bad. Malik Reed is bad. Jonathan Cooper, he's flashing. He's all right. I think he's vastly overhyped. He's outplayed draft position. For a 7th round pick, he's exceeded expectations that you expect out of most 7th round picks. There's no arguing that. Bradley Chubb, he's still working his way coming back. Denver could use him to really start to come back, especially this week, because Draymond Jones will be out and is doubtful, which is highly unlikely he'll play. Kenny Ugg is also doubtful, which is highly unlikely to play. They really need Bradley Chubb to step it up. They need Malik Reed to step it up. They need these guys to step up because you got to be able to apply pressure on Joe Burrow. But anyways, talking about the question actually was about who I would target. This is a good year for edge help.
Yes.
I think there's some quality edges that Denver can look at, even if they don't have their 1st round pick, even if they only have 1 2nd round pick and 1 3rd round pick, sending 3 of them for Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers of those first 5 picks. There's still some edge talent that they can go look at and go get and try to help add to it. And that's how. I'm not familiar with the veteran free agent class or the free agent class for edges at the moment. I could definitely go look it up.
The one name that I'm actually intrigued by, and it's specifically because of like, you're going to laugh at me for this, but how well he has played for the Broncos after they went and traded for him is Stephen Weatherly. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to come in and be a full-time starter or anything like that, but as a rotational pass rusher and just a depth guy, I've been pretty impressed with Stephen Weatherly. Like, honestly, if he wants to come back on a 1-year cheap deal, $2.5 million deal, something like that, I'm all for that for sure. I mean, he's got a couple of sacks. He's doing really well holding up the edge in the running game. Like, it's been in limited snaps for sure, but the more quality depth you can get that can actually come in and play, the better. Like, honestly, and with the need at the edge position for the Broncos in general, I mean, obviously the future is not bright. Well, I guess it's bright, but looking bleak, at least for Bradley Chubb. As you said, Malik Reed's been bad. Jonathan Cooper still has a long way to develop. He's got to get way more consistent holding the edge. Andre Mintz has flashed at times, but Stephen Weatherly has been honestly the most consistent edge rushing player that the Broncos have had in the last 4 weeks. It's been kind of crazy.
Yeah, and as for veteran options, I mean, Von Miller, of course, Denver can go do the whole sneaky thing and go bring him back. Chandler Jones is another one.
Yep.
And how awesome would it be to go out there, get a veteran quarterback, and then getting a second and third for Von Miller and then bringing them back? Doubt it happens, but that'd be awesome.
That'd be
Jadeveon Clowney's one, Hassan Reddick, Melvin Ingram, Chandler Jones. Like, there's some really good talent out there at edge in the free agent class. So there's definitely options for it. And going back to Travis Weber, as for what teams need the help from the most, the Bills and the Colts, really. If Denver wants to get higher than a 7th seed, then they need them to lose. Denver wins out, they get the 7th seed. Getting higher, they need a couple losses, at least a loss, I believe, from both of them, maybe 2 from the Bills and 1 from the Colts. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head.
They need the Raiders to win. They honestly, they need the Raiders to win a couple of games. Like, that's the big thing. And I believe one of those games is the Raiders versus the Raiders versus the Colts, or is it? I can't remember what. There's one specific game. It was week 17 that the Broncos needed the Raiders to win. And that would definitely would help them for sure, because obviously the Raiders stand below them. If the Broncos, so they probably should lose this week. They'll lose next week to the Broncos. If they win again in week 17 and week 18, they actually have an opportunity. That would be a big help for the Broncos, because the Raiders would play the Chargers in week 18. So that would help the Broncos massively.
And then real quick for Clayton Heron and Travis Weber in here, they're asking about the trickle zone. Right now, this was the last week for the trickle zone this year. I'll be back after the new year because the holidays are pretty busy for me. I won't be on Dove Valley Deep Divers next week. I will be on the following week. Again, holiday time is super busy for me and my family. But trickle zone, we're trying to figure out what day it's going to be on going forward. Due to health issues with my mom, we had to move it away from Saturday. We moved it to Monday, and then some issues started coming up. So we moved it Wednesday, and Wednesday just kind of was a bomb. So we're looking into it. We're doing some research, and as soon as I know, I'll let you guys know. But right now, it's just on hiatus for temporarily until after the new year.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for the support and stuff like that. And it'll be back. And by the time it's back, the focus is going to be almost 100% on the draft. Of course, Denver wins these next 2 games, and we're coming back. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff on the playoffs too. But we're getting ready to get to the draft time, and that's when the trickle zone definitely shines.
Yeah. Big supporter of the show here. Todd Osendorf jumping in here. Did McTelvin and Geem disappear? Yes, but no. They've had him for the majority of this season as a game day inactive. You might actually see McTelvin and Geem this week, honestly, because Draymond Jones dealing with I believe it's a foot injury. As Erick said earlier, his availability is doubtful for this game. That would be the natural slot for McTelvin and Geem to be able to come in and get some snaps. And when he's been out there, he's actually flashed. He had a really good game. I believe it was a Chargers game when he jumped in, had multiple pressures. I think he had a sack in there as well. So I'm excited to see McTelvin and Geem, and hopefully he develops a little bit better as a run defender, because that's the reason they haven't been using him. He's just not good enough against the run right now. He's got to develop some more functional strength and be a little bit more disciplined. Like, quite honestly, he's got to be way more disciplined and stop penetrating gaps so much. Him and Mike Purcell, I have issues with both of those guys as far as their penetration is concerned. John Clay Eventing jumping in here with a generous super chat. We appreciate you, John. So long as the Broncos go 3-1 throughout, losing to the Chargers would not matter. The most likely scenario at 10. Yes, it would.
If they lose to the Chargers, they need a lot more help to get even the 7th seed. If they go 4-0, they guarantee themselves the 7th seed. 3-1, they're not guaranteed. They need help. They have to, if they want in, they have to go 4-0. The most likely scenario is at 10-7, they are the 6th seed. Possibly, but again, they need help for that to get to that point. They need multiple losses from the Colts. They need someone to clear out in the AFC South. They need help from the Chargers a little bit. They need help from the Raiders to win some games. Like, winning 4 games, they're in 3-1. They're likely, but they will need a lot more help for that. And then going back on McTelvin Najim, he's played 20 snaps against the Chargers. That was the game he did. 19 of those were against the pass, were as a pass rusher, and he had 5 total pressures with 1 sack and 1 hit. That is ridiculously efficiency, except that he's not consistent enough, and there was definitely a focus on others around him that allowed him to win. Denver needs him to step up with Draymond Jones out. They need him to definitely improve his run defense, which has been why he has been out there. Shamar Stephen has just been better as a run defender.
Yep.
But I mean, he's played a total of 77 snaps this season, 50 of them as a pass rusher, and he's picked up 8 total pressures. Like he's got to do better, and hopefully we'll see him kind of be a little bit more consistent going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. I want to grab this one from Savage Boy Kev over on Twitch. Got to give a shout out to our Twitch supporters, guys. Eric, how has Quinn Miners been playing in your opinion? I saw that play earlier where he bullied that defender. What do you think about Quinn Miners?
I mean, when he's out there, he's been the best offensive lineman for the Broncos, actually. Smaller sample size than some of the other guys out there, of course. I mean, he had what game was it that he was absolutely awful?
The Chiefs game. He was not very good in the Chiefs game.
He was. I mean, the whole offensive line was absolutely terrible against the Chiefs, and he really struggled. But outside of that game, he's been the strongest offensive lineman out there pretty consistently. He's got some hiccups as a pass rusher, which is where the Chiefs really owned him at. They crossed his face multiple times. Run defender, he's a bully. He's big. He's physical. He fits the style that they're looking to. And it's nice to see that the run game, they've kind of settled down on what type of running offense they want to be instead of pulling things from everywhere and just being so convoluted that you have no direction and you're asking guys to do so many times. And that would explain why there was so much for basically communication issues up front in the run game earlier on and why that settled down a little bit. But he's been playing really well. He looks like to be a hit for be a big hit in the 3rd round for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I just looked up at the clock and we've got we're sitting at triple digits on the hour hand right now. Well, I guess triple digits on the minute hands. We're at our hour time limit, guys. We haven't even got to the Bengals game, guys. I think we're gonna end it here. And kind of move forward with the rest of our weekend. And thank you all for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I encourage you guys all to head on over to milehighhuddle.com and check out the Mile High Huddle roundtable piece where we give our picks and predictions. I am a little shaky on this football game, specifically for the explosive offense that the Bengals possess. But head on over to milehighhuddle.com where you guys can check out all of that. Scott, I'm going to grab the 1s and 2s really fast here and run through some of our matters of business here. Thank you all for joining us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can find me on Twitter by following me at Sanderson MHH, and for Eric at Erick Trickel. Also for Scott at Scout Kennedy. That's the easiest way to get him, and shout out to him for running the 1s and 2s tonight. Also, guys, at DVDD_pod. That's the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast account. We're going to find what we're talking about every single Friday. We post up there on Friday, typically about 4:00 in the afternoon. What's going to be coming out. Takes every now and again, but not very often. Also, guys, while you're at it, at Mile High Huddle, that's the mother account. That's where you're going to get breaking news and analysis on your Denver Broncos, film breakdowns, opinion articles, anything regarding the Broncos. That's where you guys are going to find it. Facebook supporters, make sure you guys go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, click a blue Become a Supporter button, and that's where you're going to get the Trickle Zone coming back after the new year, Kelberman's Corner, and you're also going to get Broncos Book Club with Chad Jensen. Scott, you got something here? Travis jumping in with some more stars, man. Thanks, Travis. Dude, you've been a superstar tonight. We really appreciate that. Very, very generous of you, and thank you again. Great show, Eric and Lance. Thank you, and have a great weekend. Go Broncos. And Travis, thank you. Again, thank you for all of your support. Without you, dude, we couldn't do what we do best. You have a great weekend as well. And as always, go Broncos. Let's see here. Guys, if you're financially able to do so, go on over to huddleuppod.com. That's the merch tent. That's where you guys are going to get yourself a Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast hat like the one that Eric has on his head right now. I've also got the Mile High Huddle State of Being hoodie on right now. There's face masks, coffee cups, onesie for your baby, anything to suit your fancy. If that's your bag, head on over huddleuppod.com. Get your merch on. Guys, that's where you're going to be able to find that. And
plenty of great options for holiday gifts.
Yes, absolutely. Great options for holiday gifts. Make sure you guys are supporting all of your favorite shows on the Huddle Up Podcast Network. And guys, if you're not financially able to do so, or that's not your bag, you don't want to throw stars or to super chat, it's great. We understand. Times are rough right now. It's fine. Obviously, the holidays are right around the corner. You do you, boo-boo, and we appreciate you for being here anyways, but you guys need to do us all a big favor. Like I've said multiple times over the last 2 years of doing this, subscribe. Wherever you guys are watching this, on YouTube especially, but Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, wherever it's at. Subscribe, follow Mile High Huddle. Like every video you guys see on all social media platforms, because that helps out a lot. But if you really want us to get out and help us the most organic way you guys can help us is by sharing everything you guys see. If you love it, share it, get in front of as many Broncos fans as humanly possible, because again, without your guys' support, we couldn't do what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos. Now, I'm going to run through the chat really fast one time, see if I can find anything. But before we get out of here, hey, Michael dropped some more stars, and thank you again, Mike. We appreciate you, buddy. Eric, any last words?
Yeah, I got a couple. I want to say to Clayton, congratulations, man. Keep it up.
Yes.
Family gets a lot of it. Always is great support and great reason to do anything. As I said, I won't be here next week. Next week's Christmas Eve, so I'm going to be out doing stuff with my family for that. And so I hope everybody who celebrates Christmas in the chat, I hope you guys have a wonderful Merry Christmas. Those of you who don't, I hope you guys have a happy or merry whatever holiday you happen to celebrate. Festivus, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, which I know is over by now, I believe. About to end. I'm right at the end. I'm always confused as to when Hanukkah is, but I hope you guys as well have a wonderful holiday. I'll see you guys here in 2 weeks from now on New Year's Eve to not necessarily ring in the new year, but celebrate the final moments. I think that point we'll probably be talking about best moments from the season from this year for the Broncos.
Yep.
But
it's going to be perfect.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Yeah, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be the year in review, show that you and I always do. The best moment of the year, worst moment of the year. It's going to be fun. I cannot wait. We actually get to do that on New Year's Eve, so that's going to be an absolute blast. I didn't even think about that. That's great. Guys, quick announcement here from me. Obviously, Eric said, and we all know next Friday is Christmas Eve. I'm not sure exactly with Eric being gone. I know he's already got plans, and as he just said, he's not going to be here. I'm not sure what I have going on yet. There will be an announcement coming soon on if we have a Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast on Christmas Eve or not. That could be just honestly, just because family time. It's Christmas. Everyone needs to be spending time with their families. I have a family as well. Obviously, I've got 3 kids, a beautiful wife at home. So there may not be a Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You will find out. Again, guys, follow me at Sanderson MHH, and also the at Mile High Huddle account, and also at Huddle Up Pod too. We'll put an announcement out there. If nothing else, I will try to maybe find another co-host and do a quick show for you guys, just to keep the live shows every single day. But there is a significant possibility we will not be doing Dove Valley Deep Divers next week.
Holidays are the only time where it's okay to go full Vin Diesel.
What?
Family.
Oh yeah, yes, I got it. Now I was thinking bald, but for
well, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, that's definitely not the case for me. But anyways, guys, thank you all for joining us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. We appreciate and love every single one of you guys' support. You all stay safe, take care, have a great rest of your weekend, and as always, go Broncos. We'll see you guys same time, same place. Well, maybe not next week, but we'll see you again at least on New Year's Eve. And again, announcement coming soon at Sanderson MHH. We'll see you guys later.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.